Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a nice coffee break, and I hope you got the opportunity to discuss the posters with each of the presenters. We extended that time a little bit longer just because there was a lot of fruitful discussion going on. We felt it was better. So now we have about kind of 5 to 10 minutes just to open the floor for further discussions. So I'd like to open the floor now to see if there's any other questions or follow-ups that people want to ask. If there's no specific follow-up, I know you probably asked a lot of questions down below. Then I'd like to ask any of the 5 here if they want to either expand on what they discussed so far, or if there's any topic that was extremely interesting from the discussions below, they just want to kind of bring that up and talk a bit more about it. So if there's any of the 5 here just wants to. There's a questions open to audience.
Yes, thank you. I have a question for Simone, and I'd like to know if when you compare the monthly data with the annual data, in the case you have just one of these sources, for example, you have just annual data, can you use this data to integrate missing answers or to imputate the answer, some kind of that? Sorry, the contrary. If you have monthly data and you don't have annual data, can you use practically this data?
Okay, thank you for the question. We compare for this analysis, we starting from the enterprises in common. So we match both the sources and we continue our analysis in terms of micro data comparison and NACE division comparison just for the enterprises in common. But the idea, the future idea is to have an early benchmark in the production of SBS statistics, starting from the STS turnover that is already surveyed and recorded in our systems. So the idea is to have something that during the data collection step, we can use to immediately make a comparison assessment on about what enterprises are answering to the SBS. We made just some check and test, and we noticed that we have a good level of consistency. There are some niche sectors in which we have to make further analysis, but the idea is to have this kind of early benchmark for STS. If the early benchmark is good, we can also have the idea to consider the total value of STS monthly turnover as the starting point for turnover of SBS.
You can I make another question for Rui, please? I just wanted to know if the survey on transportation by road apply penalties, and if the technique you presented reduced some the penalties if they are applied.
Thank you, Pascal. Yes, this survey is sampling by unit is the vehicle, and we apply some penalties, of course. The idea is to keep some non-active vehicles out of the survey to reduce the problem of the burden also, but to keep the focus in the transport of goods. So this refresh of the sampling quarterly is essential to get out these non-active vehicles. And with that, we guarantee that less response is not for the utility of the purpose of the survey. So it's one of the goals also. I just to say that Statistics Portugal also have a web scraping for another, for instance, for consumer price index for prices of hotels and other things. This is specific for this survey that we identified this need to refresh quarterly the before the sampling to reduce this problem of the transport goods in vehicles. Thank you.
Thank you. Gur down the back has a question.
Thank you. I have a question for Iris. I think that was a really interesting study that you presented. And I'm wondering, are you going to look into it more deeply, follow-up studies? I think that would be really interesting.
We analyzed some non-response analysis, as I showed in my poster, and I think we will. Our research direction is further in this in further detail on these non-response analysis, and especially figuring out what we can do to have a good non-response. So yeah, our research agenda is in this direction.
Thanks.
There's time for one more quick question if there is anyone else. If not, I'd like to wrap up this session. And once more, I'd like to thank each of the 5 presenters, Johannes, Rebecca, Rui, Iris, and Simone. And then I'd like to hand over to Paolo for session 6. So thank you.
Okay, can we move? Thank you very much for your presence. Let's go to the session number 6. It's about machine learning for LLMs and LLMs for classifications in official statistics. We will have 4 dear colleagues from the Istat from Italy. I'll focus on the use of machine learning and large language models to support classifications in official statistics. The presentations will address a variety of applications from product and activity classification, and also the identification of public control and institutional sectors, showing how AI can improve the quality in statistics, in the production of statistics. Our first presentation will be made by Mirella Morrone about the automated product of classification and business surveys, a dual approach based on web scraping and AI. Please, Mirella, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'm Mirella Morrone, and I'm in charge in methodological guidance for improvement Prodcom data quality. And today my presentation will focus on an experimental project using web scraping and artificial intelligence applied to Prodcom survey. So I will talk about context and motivation, project goals, experimental project and techniques employed, impact on statistical processes, and future developments. So, context and motivation. In recent year, there is an increasing demand of timely, detailed, and on production data. And in our project, we test artificial intelligence to automate product classification. Traditional survey is very complex and burdensome for enterprises. Our goal is to extend total survey error model into a total machine learning error model. In this framework, Istat decided to launch an experimental project to automate product classification. So, our project aims are makes product collection and classification more efficient, extend data integration in cases of non-responsive units, create a statistical register of all manufactured products, and develop tools support respondents and Istat operators. So, challenges in traditional classification. Product activity classification is very hard, is very complex, and classification more efficient. And respondents struggle, and Istat faces heavy workload. And therefore, errors, inconsistencies, underreporting are very common. This slide shows, in general, methodological framework. We started from statistical business register, identifying company websites, performing web scraping, extracting products listings, and applying automatic classification. And finally, manual work on validation results. So, experimental project consists in two phases. The first regard identification, validation of company web domain, and we analyzed 1,000 enterprises belonging to 4 Ateco classes. All website URLs were automatically scanned and obtaining over 1 million links. The results are about 42% of websites contain direct links to product pages, and about 7.5% offer downloadable product catalogs. Therefore, we using keywords filtering, and we obtain about 120,000 relevant product pages. The second phase concerns two alternative extraction and classification strategies. The first use an hybrid solution with proprietary unsupervised models. The second strategy using open source solution with supervised models. The slide shows in short, briefly, the flow concern the first strategy. Data extraction using dynamic scrapers as Playwright, Scrapy. Then large language model reformulation using OpenAI GPT-4 Mini. Then embeddings using OpenAI text embedding free large. Embeddings stored in a vector database named Quadrant. And finally, cosine similarity to identify the most relevant Prodcom code. So the second strategy, the slide shows the flow. We started with web crawling, web scraping, text chunking. Then embeddings use Snowflake Karting Event 2, and then large language model using Llama 3.8b. Finally, retrieval augmented generation to extract the most relevant chunks and to extract products listing. Okay, for classification in this strategy, were tested two approaches. Fine-tuned large language model with the Llama 3.2 3B, and another method, another approach, join multitask variational autoencoder. Okay, an overview of the main results. For the first strategy, in terms of accuracy, we have 45% at 8-digit level, correct attribution to the first 6 digits for 70%, while for the second strategy, in terms of accuracy, we have 51% at 8-digit level, but correct attribution to the first 6 digits, 74%. In particular, for the second strategy, and as regard the second approach, as using join multitask autoencoder, variational autoencoder, overall weighted metrics were calculated in terms of the precision, recall, and F1 score. So, strengths and challenges. In general, the methods shows strong extraction capability, accuracy is promising, scalability into other sectors, but we have also the challenges as noisy, poorly structured text, and in this case is need manual validation. Okay, practical implementation of the result. In general, automation shows high potential in reducing processing times and manual work. Open source solutions offer customization and independence. But more important, this matter, the process using AI models requires careful attention to data governance and privacy management. Future developments in the near future optimize AI models, standardize results validation, and in particular analyze particular linguistic aspect of Italian embeddings and improve prompt engineering techniques. In the medium term, develop tools to assist users, both respondents and Istat operators, introduce AI agents for data enrichment, optimize model fine-tuning as Culora, and use survey data with Bayesian techniques to improve the accuracy of the classification process. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mirella. It was just in time. Thank you. And now I would like to invite the assistants to make some questions to Mirella. Please, Boris. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Very interesting work and advanced. I think I just want to comment that your point about validation is, I think, very important, because here in this case you probably have had golden standard data, so data knowing from human, I guess, classification as to what is the correct code. So you could decide or have an insight into the performance of the models where you write 75% or something, but in reality these will be missing. So I mean, there will not be golden standard against which to compare these things. So I think that, as you say, one has to develop a way to validate the outcome, to have a continuous process in place that evaluates the output of the LLM, of the whole automatic classification procedure. Do you agree with that? Not really.
Yes, manual validation, it is very important, especially for ambiguous cases, with respect in case of model. In the model, we observe noisy, as therefore manual validation, it is important.
More questions? Please, Gus.
Yes, thanks for your presentation. I tried to do something like this in the past, like 10 years ago, when LLM models were not so good yet. But a big problem I faced was that sometimes a product is really similar in the NACE code, but then there's a slight difference, like for furniture, if it's needed for consumers, it's a different for NACE code than when it's needed for a company, for an office, or so. Then you can see, oh, I'm making a chair. That's quite obvious on the website that they're making chairs, but then you need to know who is going to buy the chair, who's going to use it. And that's sometimes very difficult. So I wondered if you look at the option to see like, oh, it's either this nice code or that nice code, and then offer both, or ask one question to see which is the right one. Sometimes it's very hard to predict the exact right one, but you know, oh, it's probably one of those two or one of those three.
We're using keywords product related as product, products, sell. Each page text is divided into individual sentences. And those containing product-related keywords, product, products, sell, and we created the sector named chance, compute cosine, compute embeddings, and then if we have a chunk is too long, split it again in sub-chunks.
Yes, thank you.
One more question, if you will. I invited for one more question. Okay, we will have more time after the. Okay, Pasquale, please.
Thank you, Paolo. Just a very quick question for Mirella. Do you intend to apply the result of experimentation in current Prodcom data collection process? Then just some clarification by the privacy constraints. You mentioned this issue. What are you doing in this field, on this regard?
In the near future, we include this method, this activity in our national statistical program. It is a legal framework of official statistics in Italy. And we include in this program this activity.
Okay, thank you, Mirella. So we're going to move to the next presenter. Next speaker is Giulio Masacci. Please, Giulio, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Giulio, and today I want to show you a study quite similar to the previous one because of the use of the LLM, but the use case is different because we are trying to coding the economic activities based on the Italian business text. And this study is, we want to compare, so is aimed to compare different LLMs models and to see which are the complexity, the context that are more efficient to classify the economic activities. So just to present the context, so we are living in a life with a significant changes also in these years, and because of the innovation, automation, and development digital services. So classification for companies are crucial, and we have to be up to date to have consistency and comparability between economic statistics. And we all know the necessity to integrate text analysis to assess, evaluate the economic activities. So, like I said, the goal is we want to investigate the state of play of usage of language models in this classification of these Italian business economies. Talking about the data sources, so we mainly focused on two inputs, two data sources. The first one is the text input. Basically, we are using the financial statement. That is a document, probably you know that is a document that offer a very detailed description of the company's financial health, and sometimes contains textual information that are so-called explanatory notes, where, let's say, according with the quantitative information of the financial statement, there are more detailed explanation of the activities and product and service of that company. For the classification, we use Ateco 2025. It's the Italian official system for categorizing economic activities, and of course is aligned with the standard framework, European standard framework, NESI. The last version is the Rev 2.1. And it has an hierarchical structure. So the codes, so the structure is 1 up to 6 levels. And for this use case, for this study, we investigate the categorization, the classification at 5 digits. That we roughly have 90, 100 classes in that level. So here just a visual representation of the Ateco that is mainly have the information about title of each level, and of each level we have also a detailed description that to represent that class. Methodological work. Talking about the methodological workflow, we mainly focused in three topics, in 3 pillars. So the first one is the sample strategy. So we want to ask, we want to answer a question in which are the companies to be considered to evaluate these models. The second question that we want to answer is the description construction. So which are the information that we have to use for the classification. We have to, for example, if we have to put or apply some text transformation, and which are the performance applying this. The third one is of course, is the model selection. So which are the models that we want to consider, and in which manner we want to evaluate the performance. So first, the first pillar, so the first topic for the sample strategy. So mainly we have a stratified data set that the stratification is based on the classification of Ateco 2025 5 digits, and we consider at least 100 company for each class, and if are less, of course we consider all those companies. And for the financial statement, we consider the text that at least have 30 characters on that text. So to be sure that at minimum information of text. On the right side, we see, let's say, very quick distribution for most frequent and less frequent companies, according with in this case, classification 2 digits. And with a total, with this, let's say, condition, we extracted 62,500 companies to evaluate these models. The second pillar, so the description construction. So basically here there are two concepts: the embeddings and descriptions, descriptors. The embeddings, like we said before, is the numerical representation of these LLMs. So when we put text in these LLMs, we have an embedding that is a high dimensional space vector. And to create these embeddings, of course, we want to, like I said before, also we want to make some text processing, and that before to put this information to the LLM, we call it descriptor. So the way that input are structured and prepared to be processed to produce the embedding. In this case, for the Ateco, we use the concatenation of title and description. For financial statement, we tested two options. So the first one without no text processing. The second, the process like the previous presentation, we used a keyword-based, of course, heuristic in this case. So we listed a list of keywords. So we extracted sentences according with these keywords. So we filter out this information for each financial statement. And last but not least, of course, like I said before, for these models, because of the embeddings, so the main important metrics used and generally used for these models are the cosine similarity. So the most is near the Ateco to the financial statement, the more is the probability to have this the correct classification. The last one, so the last topics that we studied is we searched the main state of play models used in the research. We saw that they are differentiated by complexity and language mainly. And because of the financial statement privacy concern, we used the open model to be processed in-house, let's say. So here listed, let's say, also ordered by complexity. So there are some specific, for example, the second one is a pure model trained with Italian text, but there are also general models. How we measure the performance? We use the accuracy at top 5 proposal. So basically, for each model, we present 5 options, and if one of each are the real one, we consider a correct classification. Of course, it's a trade-off for this study. It's a pure visual representation of what we are doing. So starting from the data, text data, we processed with the concatenation for the Ateco and the 2 options for the financial statement. We produce through the LLM embeddings. We project these embeddings in a multi-space. We calculate the cosine similarity, and we associate the company with Ateco. Results. For the first options, so the no process for the text, we have accuracy below 5%. So for all the models, and even if we consider high similarity levels, so for the cosine similarity, this strongly suggests that this method is an effective for this specific task, and are not able, so these LLM models are not able to extract informative features that are, of course, in the middle of the text. Another observation that we can consider is that the length of the financial statement, because we observed that if we see the picture, we see the distribution of each financial text. Models are not able to process all these texts provided by the financial statement. Only, for example, in this case, the last one, so the BGM3 is able, but not at all. So this could be also, let's say, an observation that could be interesting to say that probably is possible due to this fact. So this model can process less information that the text is the input text, let's say. So like we are confident the fact that the keyword base is the most is a better solution, let's say. So the first result that we observe after the pre-processing, we observe that only 28% of companies contains that keyword. Just to also this reserve the fact that probably the financial statement are not the proper input to classify the companies. Instead, so this is the first quick result. Instead, if we look at the picture now, if we see in the x-axis they say the cosine similarity that if you see and in y-axis the accuracy in percentage value. If we, of course, if we increase the similarity, we increase also the accuracy. So it's obviously, but we see, let's say, also to understand the cutoff to understand which will be the cutoff for the classification could be useful to see. BGA model, so the complex that one is the most have more accuracy. Sentence BERT, so the Italian one, is outperformed the all meaning LLM, and Gemma is the lowest that we see. We observe in terms of accuracy. Looking at the conclusion, we observed that LLM can modernize official statistics in the sense that we observe the direction. So we have to properly put concentration on the more complex models instead of more simplistic or more specific. And in this case, like I said, BGA M3 outperformed other models. Small models are faster but less accurate. Data quality, because of the 28% of the availability of this information, is the majority challenge. So we understand which are the input text to address. So in this case of the last conclusion is that the LLMs should support. We observe the fact that the LLMs, instead of replace, so automatically associate the class, instead is the state of play. We observe that the system should support the expert instead of replacement, because we observe, like we see here, the percentage of accuracy is probably also aligned with the previous presentation. We are mainly around 50%, but not always, let's say. So yeah, that's all my conclusions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Giulio. It was just in time. And now it's time for questions. Please, we have one hand over there.
Thank you very much. Very interesting presentation. I have just one question. Did you notice if there are any sectoral patterns in terms of inconsistency? Because typically you might have the most dynamic sector where the financial statement, the inconsistency does not mean that the financial statement is incorrect, but simply the firm has evolved, now is producing new products. The firm would not update the Ateco code. And so this inconsistency simply reflects this type of pattern. So maybe, if you look at more dynamic sector, you will see more inconsistency, whereas in more traditional sector, you won't see this.
Yeah. Have to answer now? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. In fact, future research that in reality we are investigating right now is which are because here I presented the overall accuracy. Of course, we want to be concentrated which are the classification that we are less precise. We observed mainly two aspects. The first one is, like you said, there are also because there are also a classification in these years, there are several classes that are inconsistent because of these changes. So also the similarity between two classes are very so the nearest so basically the classes are very near in sense of semantic meaning. The second one that we are seeing the problem is the bias of this problem of these models, because of course these models are trained with generic purposes with lots of text, like you know. So these are the second problem. So probably what we expect to do in this in the near future is observe these classes, which are the worst cases, try to fine-tune these problems, fine-tune those problems, and see what happened. So these are the second, let's say, the second phase of this study.
Thank you. More questions, please?
Thank you very much for the very nice talk. I was just curious about this cosine similarity between two texts. I have never seen this metric. Does it have a link with principal component analysis? Like you project both texts on some space of lower dimension and you measure a cosine in this space?
Yeah, like I said, we are comparing vectors. So basically it's a dot product of these vectors, but let's say with the normalization of these vectors. So by comparing, we are comparing the angle between these two vectors. And it's a state of play measure used for these vectors, for these embeddings, and basically are dot product of these vectors.
Yeah, but these vectors are obtained by some kind of projection. These two vectors, they are obtained how? With some kind of projection?
Yeah, exactly. So these models, so these LLMs, what is, let's say, the magic between the text and vectors? So basically, these models are we have to see these LLMs like clusters of meanings. So basically, if there is some key, let's say, word, but we have to we talk about tokens. So, but let's say the models are there are words that activate that specific area of that model. So the model is near this LLM try to comprime or like to cluster same words in a same space. So this is the way we are comparing this vector. So the final vector is a summarization of all the words that the text is produced. So by text, we have a summarization of this text and is put in a high-dimensional spaces. But these high-dimensional spaces depends on the weights, on the in which manner that these models are trained. So probably if there are some, of course, we can observe some bias. So probably we can see that words like that are in a semantic way are distant, but for some cases in this model are put these words in very similar. Of course, there is a bias. But yeah, so this model try to leverage the words between the space by putting similar words where similar words are proper for LLMs in a similar space.
Thank you.
Very short, but I try to. I hope it's okay for you the answer.
Okay, Giulio. Thank you. More questions? Please.
Okay. Just a little question. Which is the data source of financial statements? Infocamere, XBRL, because XBRL text is very simple. It's very poor.
Yeah, no, like XBRL text. Yeah. No, in fact, we are mainly here we presented in which manner this model is the behavioral of these models. But of course, the first problem, like I said before, regarding the 28%, we observed that these information are very poor in the sense of representation of the description of the products and activity of the companies. So in fact, let's say this study is a multiple there are multiple activities, like you said, evaluate text information. In fact, at this stage we haven't yet evaluate this text, so we have the maturity and the opportunity to observe what happened with this LLM, because sometimes now they let's say the stories that the LLM can do it always, or all things. So yeah, but of course we know that XBRLs probably could cover only specific parts, specific topics. For example, in fact, since we are seeing that we can consider this LLM as such a support. We know that this model can cover only. We imagine that if we want to put in production, we want to see a production workflow. We are seeing an official traditional activity. And for those companies that are not able to cover with traditional activity, we see what happened with this workflow. So yeah, it's not for a general purpose, let's say.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Giulio. We will have the time for the last 5 minutes after the next presentations to wrap up. Now I would like to invite Alessio Canzonetti to present then the next work, machine learning for assessment of public control and foundations and consortia. Please.
Good morning. The contents of this speak regard the objective of the research, what is the institutional sector S13, the concept of public control, data and methods used, and conclusion. So I'm going to present a branch of project aiming at introduce machine learning techniques in the statistical classification process of institutional units according to European System Account 2010. Specifically, the task is to assess existence of public control over the units. So it's a typical classification task, supervised classification task. S13 represents the institutional sector of general government as defined by the European System of Account 2010. There are other sectors of national economy, and European System Account is a structured set of accounts describing how economy or country works. General government sector includes public producers of goods and services that are not intended for sale. These units are public or under public control. And the concept of public control means that when a corporation, when the public administration can to determine the general corporate strategy of a corporate, or for a non-profit institution, its general policy. These are the criteria that arise the public control, that assess the public control. The focus here is that the existence of just one of these criteria
is sufficient to determine the existence of public control over the unit. So where we can find information about public control? In the statutes of the units, of the institutional units. Statutes contain the information we need for our purposes, specifically the topic governance. So the composition, powers, and functioning of governing and supervisory bodies. As you can see, statutes have other contents which can introduce noise in the analysis. Our experimentation covered over 500 units of three legal forms: foundations, public law consortia, and private law consortia. We select this legal form because there are limited availability of structured resources for this type. And so the analysis of this type of units is quite time expensive. Statutes were in PDF format, so we have to extract the textual contents from this file. For native PDF, it's quite trivial. We use the PDF Python page, PDF Plumber Python package for this task. Problem is with PDF that are image copies of analog documents. So we have to perform an optical character recognition first, and then a text cleaning to correct the errors caused by presence of stamp, signature, and the error introduced by the OCR. On this text, we have performed further preprocessing, like lowercase conversion, removal of punctuation, and stop words, essentially. So finally, we obtain a pandas data frame with 5 fields: ID document, organization name, legal form, and the statute text. Quindi in a field, there's the entire text of the statute, and the target variable needed for the supervised process. Then we use the various type of classifier. We can say they belong to 2 different families. Logistic, net-based, and support vector machine have used frequency data. So we have 533 rows. Each one is the institution, the statute. And on the column, we have the words. Data is the occurrence of each word in each document. So it's a frequency data. For the neural network, essentially the convolutional neural network, long short-term memory, I've tried, but produced very bad results. For this type of classifier, it needs sequential data. So the metrics have still 533 records, but in the data, there is the natural development of the text. So this is the first word of the first document, second word of the second document, and so on. Documents of different lengths were padded with dummy words. This is a little excursus on the CNN architecture. It's quite light. It's a very simple architecture. There's an embedding layer to catch the semantic relationships between words, as just explained by my colleague first. A single one-dimensional convolutional layer with only 16 kernel fields and a kernel size of 3. So the neural network can process at max a sequence of 3 words, and then dropout layer, another layer. More complex architecture provide worse result. The results are, as you can see, show a quite heavy overfitting, despite good performance on training sets. For the CNN, we could easily reach the 100% in the training, but the test accuracy doesn't rise. So, in conclusion, first of all, the data set is too small to train a sufficiently generalized model. But moreover, there's the noise introduced by all those parts of text dealing with elements and activities specific to the entities rather than its governance negatively affect the performance. So to improve the results, could be used to pre-select only those sections of the statute that deal with the governance topics and submit only these to the classification models. Moreover, we have to expand the set of documents. We already have further 800 statutes. But finally, decreasing tiny flexibility of neural networks and their ability to interpret the semantic meaning of text make them the most suitable tool for this type of application. In these metrics, these kind of metrics tend to compact too much the information, so you have a loss of information. Following the naturally developed text permit to obtain better results. Yeah.
Thank you, Alessio. It was just in time. More than that.
You were worried with me.
Yeah, I was worried, but that was no reason. But I would like to invite the assistants to make some questions to Alessio. Any question? But I can make it one. The data set you refer is very small, in my opinion. 523 units to be expanded more to 800. Do you ever consider using other techniques to enrich the training and testing set?
No, we have only think to reach the number of the statutes. Obviously, they go over the 3 legal form we consider in this work. So maybe we can use some expert use. We didn't make it because it's a time expensive task. And because the concept of public control are quite sparse in the text and is expressed in very, very several ways. So it's quite difficult to build a list of expert rules effective.
Thank you. Questions from the table, for colleagues from the table? Pasquale, please.
Thank you. I'd like to ask to Alessio, among the tested algorithms, you mentioned that the most promising is for the semantic analysis that based on neural networks. And I'd like to know if you have considered a possible integration with domain knowledge and so adopted an hybrid model that integrates the sectorial knowledge with the neural network model you explained?
No, I haven't.
Thank you. Okay.
Time for one more question. I have one. And in your paper, you mentioned some irrelevant parts contains or hides meaningful content. So irrelevant, meaningful. And how do we cope? Can you cope with this antagonism or this situation? Doing manual?
Actually, nowadays the idea is to use chatbot to extract the relevant information from the text.
Thank you very much. So, Alessio, so I would like to invite the last speaker of this session, Guido Boran. He will speak a little bit about machine learning for the classification of units in the general government sector. Please, Guido. Okay, it's okay.
Sorry. I'm Guido Bora. I'm working in direction on economic national account. And my office is the office that include the institutional units in the general government sector. So in the public finance statistic, we have a central role. Just a little bit caveat, because the study with Alessio Canzonetti is complementary, is preliminary of our study. We can't use estimates to include, in order to include institutional units in general government sector. Because our legislation in 2009 titled Problem of Public Finance, Spending Review, is an Italian technique to reduce public expenditures, to the general government list. So the list is contemporary, statistic, and legal. Every year, at the end of September, we have to publish on the official gazette in Italy. So it's very, if an institutional unit enter in general government list, can audit TAR, can audit Council of Account. So the problem is that we can demonstrate that the institutional unit was included in S13 list by estimates. So it's currently this process is deterministic, but we wanted to improve our knowledge about this process. Because it's very time expensive, it's very burden, because we must analyze every year 400, 500 institutional units in order to base classification in the public general government sector. And so the use of new techniques or machine learning have to objective to improve efficiency, to reduce subjectivity. European system account is very complex, and so it's very regulated. So this process could be under control thanks to these new techniques that helps to classify, not determine two classified inside. This is why it matters. This is a very, very important point because on the general government list is calculated the deficit, and so the public deficit, and so all the aggregate is on the protocol on the ADP procedure. This is a great responsibility because we have a great institutional unit like Cassa Depositi e Prestiti that is outside the general government sector but under public control, that the liabilities are 27% of Italian GDP. What we do? We control institutional unit status, active, non-active, in liquidation. Government control. The government control, in part, it's the analysis is on the statutes as we saw in the presentation of Alessio. And at the end, we control also the behavior, the economic behavior. The economic behavior is very important topic of this classification because we, based on the financial statements of the firm, we calculate an index that is the ratio of sales and the costs that if for 3 consecutive years is under the 50%, this unit under active ongoing activity under government control and non-market behavior is a unit that goes in general, it could be included in a general government sector. Why I specified active? Because there is an exception, a big exception, if the institutional units is in liquidation, is enough 1 year under the threshold of 50%. This is only one of special cases of classification that we can, as we can see in the next slide, is a core problem of our work. This is not important. Okay, no, okay. There are also in the past there was a very significant study that approach the problem of classification, Bank of Italy and the European Central Bank. I also consider it Barone Teleta because a very important topic for us that control also hidden state aid. And this could be a very interesting analysis for other branches of our work. Data sources are very heterogeneous. There is a high heterogeneity in data sources because we use a balance sheet, a financial element from a survey, from an Istat survey that is Rete Europea, in order to identify in-house companies, a company that is native, publicly controlled. We use the ANAC, that is the authority of competition, Italian competition, and also XBRL model, XBRL balance sheet, and so on. This is the core of our analysis. We try to analyze the classification problem with the two models, decision tree and the support vector machine. Okay. Sorry. Support vector machine Decision tree is more classical. It's the oldest technique, and if you, I don't present any figure, but you can imagine a tree with several branches. The model split the branches from the tree. Each tree maximize purity with the Gini index or information gain. And at the end, we have a model, classification model with a hierarchical structure. What is the pros of this model? The pros of this model is that very simple to use, and is handle contemporary categorical and numerical data. That is impossible in the second model. However, it's not very general because it's prone to overfitting. The second, support vector machine, is the cutting edge in this moment. It's a good classifier, and we can draw an hyperplane that maximizes the separation between two classes of in the feature space. It's more general, it's less prone to overfitting, and as we can see, we have the best result with the second one. 5. Oh, which variables we used in predictive variables? Ateco is a good code for classify economic activity. Legal form, 3 average text market as you saw before, and the special case indicator. Special case indicator is, for example, institutional unit in liquidation or holdings, financial holdings, for example. And this is this model perform well at identifying unit outside general government sector, and with less false positive and more false negative. And this is not good for us. The SOM result shows a better result. I summarized, for brevity, I consider only SOM configuration 1 because configuration 2 is theoretical. And so we can see that SOM outperform in every statistic, accuracy, precision, recall, false negative, false positive. This is the core of the problem. We have a lot of special cases. It's not only in liquidation, but also holding of participation and on the opposite, railway and concessionary of and so on. It's very difficult for us to find all of them. Theoretically, if this is maybe is useless, but this is good because this shows that because the data are perfectly linear and separable. But this is a very theoretical case. We are not able to perform this classification. we simply we checked the difference between inside and outside and the special case, but it's not a categorical variable. Thank you for attention. We try to use this model to help in our work, and we try to associate a probability, a number that measure a probability of that the firm is a candidate or not to enter in general government sector. Thank you for attention.
Thank you, Guido. It's a very interesting presentation. And I would like to invite the audience to make some questions to Guido. After we will have time to more broad questions. Yes, please.
Thank you for the nice presentation and for using SVMs. Actually, I am very curious about the inputs of the SVM, the training data that you used, because I'm no expert in SVM, but I have never seen works with SVM with very high dimensional inputs. That's what you are using, right, here?
Okay, this is a good question, because I don't put this argument in the presentation, but we used our database of 4,500 firms, in part already in general government list. That is the database that we use for test purpose. And the other firm is a public controlled firm outside general government. So we put inside these two samples, the general government for testing purpose and the outside but public controlled that we every year have to send to Eurostat. In this way, we build a sample, but we have a less number because we need to have 3 consecutive years of a market test. So excuse me. This is the reason we have less institutional units in our analysis.
More questions? I'm wondering about your mentioning special cases, and which means that you do that. What you compare case by case, or please clarify this.
Okay. Special cases. I make an example. 3 years above 50%. Public controlled active inside the general government. Why? On the opposite, 3 year consecutive under 50% outside general government sector. We have a lot of these cases, and we perform this analysis case by case manually. For great company like Enel, that is an electricity company in Italy, the most important electricity company in Italy, it's impossible to use just a machine learning result to classify inside. And so we necessary do the analysis case by case. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if my colleagues on the table
Okay.
wants to make some. I have. Okay, after you, please.
According to the previous question regarding the inputs data, did you perform any kind of feature importance analysis of the predictors? If yes, if you have found any interesting patterns that probably can predict more than other. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for the question. No, because wait for no, because we didn't consider to analyze the specific weight of predictors because we try to find the best predictor in choosing like a little bit data mining and not based on a statistical basis because it's a develop we consider a develop of our it's because this study as you can see is very preliminary but it's a good we can improve the result extrapolating the parameter and the significant parameter like a traditional statistic for each predictor, but we don't consider it at all at this stage of analysis. Thank you.
Thank you. My last question to you, Guido, and it's about data preparation.
Data preparation?
Yes, because data preparation seems to be crucial in this for the success of this type of use. What extent of the simple text mining or natural language processing techniques determine the performance for more complex machine learning models?
Yes, we prepare the data based, we have another, okay. This is the data sources, but we prepare data for machine learning without missing value, without whole in time series, and this is the reason we have a less number of institutional unit. It's quite the same ecco. No, I have another presentation. Okay, no. And in which I put a little summary of this question. But the data preparation is very important because, for example, in SVM we could use together qualitative and quantitative figure, and so we try to adapt our data to these models.
Thank you very much, Guido. Now it's time to wrap up, but I would like to have to ask for the audience some broad questions about this machine learning and and LLMs for classification. Of course, for all of the 4 speakers, I would like to invite the audience. Okay, we have one hand there. Yeah, it's the first one.
Thank you for everybody who has been presenting machine learning for us. I see Istat has a very strong position in this. All 4 of you represent Istat, and you've done a lot of good work with machine learning. You showed how to use machine learning for sector 13 guessing, how to use it for NACE classifications. These are quite standard problems that I think most NSIs face. We've in Finland also been studying how to machine learn or predict the correct NACE codes, etc. So very similar problems. And I have a general impression that many countries have been doing these kind of studies, but individually and teaching their own model to become better at predictions. In a sense, I sometimes wonder whether it would be more productive for all of us to throw the NACE codebook with all of its definitions into ChatGPT or some other online artificial intelligence system and have it learn that by heart, and maybe in Italian as well as in Finnish, so that it could use language translations also. And we could throw, when the data is open, we could even throw our SBR units with the NACE codes, and financial figures could be put in the same place, so that maybe it would be more of an iterative process of learning, not so that we always start from zero teaching a new system, and then our system is getting better, but then later we use some other programming technology to again teach our own machine, instead of teaching a machine which is available to everyone and constantly learning more. And I would like to get your feedback on how do you perceive this as an interesting alternative strategy to these individual machine learning projects?
Thank you. Please, took the floor. Okay.
On my point of view, I'm using these models for several use cases, and not only for this one that I presented. And I have the perception that we are all moving in a laboratory mode, in the sense that since they are very the maturity of the usage is not covered. I mean, I'm talking about a large language model, not a machine learning model, but large language model. So where the input are text. So basically here there are several ways to move and to use it, and we are trying to find the best way, the best process to use it. So at the moment, I believe that it's necessary that every institutions move discover different way to develop, but then of course to have an European view, we have to create. There are up to date. There are several tables that are working on to create a general purpose model to use this information in these activities. But yeah, we need more time to understand in which manner, because there are several also problems in terms of privacy concern. There are problem of bias problem. So the problems are very huge at this moment. So I don't see in the near term a general development, but there are specific use cases could use different methods. So this is my point of view today.
Thank you. One more question? I have a general question or maybe a provocation for all the speakers. And we are talking about performing classification using AI. How about using AI to access the quality or improve the quality of the classification? Anyone can react? Because you use classification, manual classification, and we suppose that the manual classification is the top quality, but it's not.
If the question is in which manner we want to convince us to use AI with classification, of course, for me, it's a continuous process. These models are, for example, also on my side, today I developed one model, but is living today. Tomorrow, the language is changing. The way of creating activity, the create of products and services will be different. So the training that we made today is not anymore, could be not anymore sufficient tomorrow. So I am convinced that this model needs to be available but be monitored constantly if we want to put in production in the official institution, official statistics. So basically it's a matter of how to say, monitor in up-to-date way the performance and to convince us that this model can help specific tasks.
Another reaction? That's another reaction?
Just a last comment. In general, for our work, these classification models can help a lot. So we have to improve it. We have to study. We have to learn new models and stay on the cutting edge. Stay on the cutting edge is, in my opinion, is not a fashion position. It's necessary to improve the analysis because we have a lot of problem, as you can see, to classify well. On one side is a problem of preparation of data, as noted Paolo. But on the other side, we have to improve the model, the classification model, for example, to include also the analysis proposed to Giulio. And this is.
Thank you. One more reaction? So I would like to thank you very much. It was very nice. And now we can move on to the next speaker. He's a keynote speaker. I would like to invite Iwan Mullane. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paolo. And oh, sorry.
So we were going to from Iwan Mullane, Central Statistics Office, Ireland, statistician. He is enterprise statistics, working at enterprise statistics. He's head of a data utility project, data collection, processing plus analysis, modernization initiative. Is very, very interesting to hear about that. So bearing out in data collection and administrative secondary data, the data interoperability and integration. And Iwan has academic background in financial econometrics, time series analysis. So I would like to invite you to give your speech, please, Iwan.
Thanks, Paolo. And thanks to NBES as well for this very generous keynote speaker slot. The key word in my presentation, in my paper, is toward. This model is definitely in its infancy, and I suppose in the spirit of EESW, I'm really here to discuss and to theorize and to listen and to learn from all of the expertise in this room. So thanks again for this slot. Let me just begin with some background. The Enterprise Statistics Division in the CSO is a very busy area. We obviously produce the core structural business statistics and short-term statistics, but we also contribute to many different areas: energy, earnings, people in business, technology, innovation, etc. Our users really want timely data. I think many of us have spoken about that already. And they also want more comprehensive data on topical issues, things like research and development, housing, gender balance in business, and this means more comprehensive data. Two key points that will become relevant later is that all of our surveys are conducted electronically and our sample designs are pretty straightforward. So maybe because of the small size of Ireland, we have lots of censuses, but if we don't have a census, then by design, it's pretty well balanced, pretty standard. So that will be important later. Why do we need a new model of collection? Well, Ger and others have spoken about these issues in the collection and the complex collection environment, so I won't review them. But for us, this has resulted in an increased operational workload, and it comes down to a resource optimization problem between operational and strategic priorities. So these days, our statisticians, our team members have less time to dedicate to strategic initiatives. That includes addressing the non-response and quality problem in surveys, but also around producing new outputs, evaluating existing products, horizon scanning, preparing for the future, or just engaging in more interesting and innovative work. The international momentum in this space is also really interesting, especially this year. And I think to kind of summarize it, I would describe it as having kind of two sides to the same coin. So on one side, we talk about what I would refer to as data capture. And I suppose when we think about data capture, we think about everything we could do in order to meet our requirements. So things we talk about there would be administrative data, metadata, multi-source statistics production, systems interoperability, and as Paolo, you spoke about yesterday, national data infrastructures. This is obviously a very effective pathway to take, and we produced a paper for CES earlier this year where we talk about this. For example, we were able to eliminate 50 survey questions in the SBS this year. And of course, if we can replace a question with an administrative source, all of these challenges in collection go away. But on the other side of the coin, we do have this acknowledgement of the critical ongoing function and need for surveys and the need to modernize survey taking. And when we think about that, we think about respondent-centric design, business intelligence, active management, responsive survey designs, and that's what we're going to be focusing on today. So we have a lot of primary research on this as well. A couple of years ago, we had, I suppose, a response rate crisis in the structural business statistics, particularly in our industrial SBS survey. Traditional collection practice in the CSO was fairly kind of lengthy fielding periods, unsystematic approach, a fairly rigid approach, and we had this declining response rate problem in CIP for a while. So we initiated a project to see what would work and what wouldn't work in terms of addressing the response rate problem, and so it was very much an open discussion, an open trial. We learned a lot from it. These are some of the interventions we would have taken, and these numbers are impact factors. If the impact factor is above 1, then it had an effect. If it's below 1, then it didn't. And what we learned was that taking a more proactive and flexible approach that was informed by power data and included more synergistic intervention strategies was very effective. So we can even see, for example, with one of our reminder letters, it has this 0.9 associated with it. This was a very strict warning letter that we sent to companies, and it had no effect. And it was these other interventions, these other more, again, synergistic and proactive, informed by power data, that they, again, began to have an effect. We can see that, for example, in the phone calls. Power data informed phone calls were much more successful than, let's say, random phone calls, which had really no effect. Of course, we needed more resources to do this, and that is a downside. More resources are expensive, and we, I think, knew pretty immediately that this was an unsustainable approach. We needed new technology to continue using our power data. We needed to formalize an approach and decide on priorities during collection. We learned that effects still exhaust, and the legal framework in Ireland is a challenge. We cannot fine companies, and we have very limited capacity to take legal proceedings against companies. We can see that in the consistent and persistent non-response boundary. So we actually, as part of this campaign, specifically targeted 319 companies who never respond to us. And we were able to get 85, but that's only 27%. So even after all of this, most of them still ignored us. The headline result, however, was very positive. We were able to increase response by over 50%, which was a good result. This was the highest result in a decade. But more interestingly, I think, was that we were able to get that same level of historical response in roughly half the time. So that was really interesting, especially in the context that effects still exhaust. This is at the end of the campaign, but even during the campaign, if you look at the time series of returns, you see these periods of very low activity. And what is the point of this? How can we make this a bit more efficient? And again, if we look at the left-hand side, we see response rates declining again. So that's that unsustainable approach. So if we try and think about a new way to conduct our collection operations, well, let's first of all formalize some of the issues with the old collection model. Well, we have, as I say, diminishing returns on effort, and eventually these become, I would say, vanishing. A proactive and flexible approach was much more efficient. We had an inefficient and insufficient quality target, and this for us is the response rate. It's inefficient in that it's evasive, and there's unrealistic expectations associated with the response rate, or at least there was, and this delayed the analysis phase. And again, a strategic initiative or strategic priority is to be more timely with our results. It's insufficient in that there was an inattention to other quality metrics. So there are other measures of quality that we can and we should be analysing in real time. Power data obviously proven to be highly effective, but at this point under leveraged. We needed to formalise their use, make it easy to make actions and decisions based on them. And we had limited operational visibility. This is the silo problem that Ger talked about, both within service but across the whole division. So we need to define a new model, and I certainly don't claim to have invented this. This is definitely down to the excellent research by colleagues in the Netherlands, Canada, the UK, the United States, and so on. But we define this model as a quality-driven approach whereby collection programs are dynamically adjusted based on effort, reward, and in our case, and maybe it's something new, opportunity costs. So we want to have a proactive approach both within surveys and across the division as a whole. So how do we go about implementing a model like this? Well, first of all, let's define some parameters. The model must encompass technology, methodology, and operations. So it's more than just a dashboard, and we'll talk about that again in a minute, but it is underpinned by a power data-driven dashboard. It operates based on these principles of active fieldwork management and materializes in surveys as responsive and adaptive designs. So again, this is where that critical research by people much smarter than me have come in to this model. It does pay attention to opportunity costs, and because of this, it must be general. And this is a real, I suppose, the main point of interest for me to discuss. As I say, I'm here to learn from you. can we implement a model like this using a generic set of tools, a generic set of indicators and plans? Maybe we can. In our case, I think we can, but it depends maybe on a specific environment in other NSOs. So this is a really interesting point of discussion for me, and hopefully we'll get to talk about that a bit later. So what have we done to, implement this model? Well, the first and fundamental prerequisite to implementing a new model like this is to provide information and to simplify processes. So we've built this OrShiny dashboard, and we've seen some really interesting OrShiny work at this conference as well. And it's based entirely on power data and register data. In the future vision, we want to obviously expand this to survey data and administrative data as well. But as I say, the fundamental idea is first and foremost to simplify process and provide information to practitioners. So what does it do? Well, we have several views. At the divisional level, we attempt to break down these silos and provide that operational visibility across the entire division. So in one example here, we're looking at all surveys in real time across not just one quality dimension in terms of the response rate, but now also looking at this CV indicator, which we'll go into more detail on in a minute. There's, of course, other quality metrics that we are analyzing in real time, but this is just an example of trying to break down the kind of barriers between the survey areas. We have the survey level itself, which is focused on delivering these, I suppose, responsive and adaptive designs. But fundamentally, it automates a lot of reporting and procedural work that people would have to do. And it also tries to bring a bit more action to these insights, which I'll touch upon in a couple of slides' time. So lots of new metrics in here. Again, we'll talk about those in more detail, but for the first time, kind of really easy to use, easily presented, automated standard reporting and prioritization. We have the unit level view where we can look at respondent behavior in real time across all of our surveys. Again, this has led to big gains in efficiency in terms of unit non-response follow-up or recontact. Again, it's just about breaking down those barriers. And I think crucially with a system like this, it needs to be flexible. We need to be able to introduce new things based on new requirements or new methodologies. One such thing that you won't find in the paper because it was a new requirement was that users wanted to go into detail at the cell level, at the stratum level. And so we've been able to quite easily tack on this new view, this cell level view. Again, automated reporting, standardized reporting, and it's very easy for users to look in the detail at the strata and look at respondent behavior, coverage, response rates, etc. So that's the first step, again, and that's the fundamental step. But we also have to think about new methodologies. So we've developed this score function, and I won't go into too much detail on this. It attempts to balance a variety of different things and to simplify prioritization. But a real key insight, and this was inspired again by Gar's work, is that underlying methodologies like this may be complex. I don't think this is really too complex. But if it is or if it isn't, it must be presented in a very simple way. So we take these scores from 1 to 100%, and it's very easy for people to understand. Also crucial is that insights must flow easily to action. So we've built in an automatic reminder, an automatic follow-up tool. So again, it's all well and good to provide these insights, but we need to make it easy to use as well. So that's one new measure. That's a measure of priority. We also have measures of representativity, and there's lots of these we could choose from. There's a good paper by Nishimura et al., which goes into many of these. We've chosen the CV, which is the coefficient variation of subgroup response propensities for a few reasons. And again, this is something I'd really like to discuss. First of all, it has a relation to response. In the denominator there, we have the mean response propensity, which is the response rate effectively. So it's pretty comprehensive in that regard. It also has this very neat interpretation of being an upper bound on maximum bias, maximum non-response bias, given the auxiliary variables that we're analyzing. Some discussion in the literature about that interpretation, but yeah, if we can use it, it's pretty convenient because people understand it. No worries. We also have this lovely feature from De Haes in the Netherlands, these partial breakdowns where we can look again at the auxiliary variables, the conditional and the partial or the unconditional partial effects on non-response bias, etc. So this is really, again, easy for people to understand. And crucially, and this is a point I'd like to discuss later, is this generic application. So can we have a generic solution? In our case, as I say, those 2 points from earlier, we do have pretty straightforward sample designs, and we did some simulation analyses on this. If we have a well-balanced sample by definition, then the correlations between response propensities and the design weights is pretty weak. And if we have a census, and many of our surveys are censuses, then the correlation is 0. So this is pretty useful for us because we can implement this metric without the need to go into every single survey and account for all the design weights. Again, through simulation, we found that we get pretty robust indicators here, and especially when the context is protocol adjustment in samples of the same design or samples over time, and then we think this is a pretty appropriate use of the indicator, but we're definitely happy to discuss that later. So there we have measures of priority and measures of representativity, and we also now have measures of progress. So this includes the usual things that people expect in terms of response rates and coverage rates or weighted response rates, distributional analyses of auxiliary variables where we can look at the responding cohort, the non-responding cohort, the full sample, the early respondents, the later respondents. We can look at respondent behavior, and we're experimenting with new indicators as well. And again, this is something I'm really looking forward to discuss. But in terms of making simple indicators that people can kind of analyze in action. So we've developed this momentum indicator, which basically tells us if survey returns are expected to increase, decrease, or stabilize again in real time. So again, step 1, provide that information. Step 2, explore and accept new methodologies and present them simply. And step 3, operationalize. How do we create, again, a generic plan or a generic model to actually implement this? Well, firstly, again, information is provided by the CMD. That's the dashboard, the collection management dashboard. We acknowledge in this model that the response rate exists in a universe of quality indicators, and we've been discussing at the break and yesterday as well about the legal frameworks and the mandatory nature of surveys. All of our surveys are mandatory, but that doesn't mean our response rates are very good. So we accept in this model that the response rate is one element of quality, and it's not the only element of quality. Again, with the need for a simple and general approach, we say that collection is set around 2 primary design phases. Primary being a keyword because we can, of course, have many more design phases. But again, in line with the need to be simple, the first phase is around response maximization, and the second phase is around that representativity monitoring and balancing. We acknowledge between these phases that we reach phase capacity, and this was a really interesting insight for us. So this is the big challenge. At what point do we decide that it's no longer efficient to continue using the same protocol? And identifying these protocol change points where we should change tactics is the big challenge. But the objective is always to maximize reward when constrained by costs. You could also say to minimize costs for a given level of reward. Again, we can see at a high level how this might work or how it might play out. Again, at this kind of second protocol change point, it's pretty straightforward. At this point, we would usually consider closing the survey. Indicator movement at this point is pretty slow. And we can look at things like the CV indicator, how it's behaving in a confidence interval. The first change point is a little bit less straightforward. Ultimately, no decision is currently based on a single indicator. It would be nice if we could do that. But we're looking at things like obviously the metrics that are currently provided, but exploring options like wave effects, so models with reminders, models without reminders, comparing their significances, distributional analysis, and again, the structure of distributions over time. And then something really aspirational would be real-time imputation and estimation, which we know colleagues internationally have done. So again, as I say, we are working towards this model. It is definitely in its infancy. We have had some impact so far. We have better targeted campaigns, and we have achieved higher quality samples, or at least the same quality for less resources. We have a revised, more balanced survey schedule. Again, this has only been operational for a few months, but we've been able to close one survey 28% earlier than before, and another survey 30% earlier than before, which frees up a lot of time. Again, addressing that operational and strategic trade-off challenge. We've saved over €11,000, and this is purely based on correspondence. There's more inspirational work from CBS Netherlands on real-time cost monitoring, and this is something we'd really like to do. But purely based just on correspondence with enterprises, we have saved over €11,000, which is pretty good. Respondents are actually happy with this approach as well. So we mentioned, or a couple of colleagues here mentioned, the complexity of business surveys, multiple respondents involved in one survey. We've actually received feedback from respondents that they're happy with the way these new reminders are working, that they would have passed the survey off to somebody else and it got lost or forgotten about. So that was kind of surprising, but very much welcome. Staff have less work, but more impactful non-response follow-up work, and they can see that reflected in the dashboard. Again, it's all very simple, all very automated. Again, the fundamental idea is to free up space, to save resources and to save time while maintaining or improving quality. And managers, we found now, are enabled to work on more impactful work. Again, closing surveys earlier, facilitated by that automated analysis and reporting and standardization. The analysis team is getting timelier data, which of course is a big strategic priority. They're happy with the quality of the data. And of course, leadership team is happy because talked about these issues for many years, and finally we have something new that we're working on. The future vision, again, it's much more than just a dashboard, and this is again inspired by colleagues in Canada specifically. But coherent and complementary design changes require a shift in thinking, and it's more than just, again, as I say, monitoring with a dashboard. You have to plan, you have to communicate, you have to evaluate, and these are all the ingredients that together drive that process and product quality. We have another project that's actually headed up by Liam here, which is called the Digital Data Capture for Enterprise Statistics project. And with this, it's I suppose, a fundamental transformation of our technological infrastructure. And again, we have a paper that we presented to CES earlier this year, where we talk about this move towards a metadata-driven model. And this respondent-centric design, and hopefully active collection management will fit in neatly with this approach. Next developments and discussion points, again with that DDCE, we're hoping to increase the range of paradata and to improve the analysis. Very interesting presentations yesterday by Xavier and Corina on paradata and monitoring and questionnaire length. Xavier talking about, can we do something about that in real time? Can we change our questionnaire design in real time? That would be really, really interesting. Auxiliary variables. I think the literature is a little bit sparse on this, but there is some good papers on what works and what doesn't work in terms of auxiliary variable modeling. So that's something we can really talk about. These protocol change points, cost modeling, detection, indicators, and optimizing this approach is something that obviously we'd like to do and like to discuss. And of course, these really inspirational models, as I've said, about rolling estimates, automated editing, which have been discussion points here at EESW previously. So to conclude, I think there's, none of these conclusions, to be honest, are really groundbreaking. But I think this model is pushing the NSO towards a more sustainable approach that balances these operational and strategic priorities. The change management component is obviously significant, but I think, and what we're arguing is that establishment statistics provides a pretty convenient application, at least in our case, and for those reasons mentioned earlier. It was an easier place to start than maybe social statistics or prices, and now those areas of the CSO are kind of following our example. There's more developments to consider, and as I say, there's two sides to the coin. This is, I call this data capture perspective, where we're looking at whatever we can do to meet our requirements. That's obviously very effective. I think that should be examined as well when we're looking at new collection models. So I think that's it. I don't know how I'm doing for time. But... Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ivan. It was behind the schedule, so it was. We have time.
We got time.
Yes. So,
question.
If you have questions, please. Ian is available for more. Yes, we have one hand there.
Thank you. Sorry, I know everyone's lunch, but I thought it was really interesting. Thank you for sharing. So I guess a reflection and a question. So in the UK, and we're also trying to develop a kind of similar framework to try and understand how we balance things like quality, timeliness, etc. So one reflection is, I think, as well as looking at data capture, look at the other side of the scale. So there's information we can learn about how well things are being operationalized and the quality from the outputs themselves. So imputation levels, estimation strategies, etc. So maybe that's something we can go next, is thinking about what maybe from previous surveys, etc., can you draw through to help inform some of those metrics? We're taking a sort of looking at the final stats productions, working backwards in our approach as opposed to this way forward. So that might be something interesting. And then a question, I guess, was obviously this is focused on data collection, I guess, is what next? Would you explore it further? And I noticed in some of the measures, you haven't got anything around operational costs, so staff, the time it takes for staff to do things, which has been a big driver for us at the UK NSI, given being government funded. So I wondered if there's any expectation you would look at maybe dashboards to help that level of paradata, you know, how much people are spending time on things. Thanks.
Thanks, Beck. Yeah, all very relevant points. I think in terms of further analysis, I had a really interesting discussion with Barry Scooten, who would have been a big inspiration for this from CBS. And we spoke about how can we model previous respondent behavior for the next stage. And so there's a really, I think, interesting opportunity to explore that. In terms of operational costs, again, very inspiring work in other NSOs about real-time monitoring of costs. That's something we'd really like to do. At the moment, we just, as I say, have these kind of real costs, these, you know, paper correspondence costs, whatever. It would be really interesting to have a better system that really models this. And of course, there is work, there's papers out there which take cost functions and take these kind of metrics in real time and actually really optimize for that. So yeah, it's really inspiring. And that's an element to your other question of what's next, just more research and trying to get the resources to actually implement it.
Thank you. Please, for her, last row, please. Please, her.
Thanks, Ewan. Really interesting to hear about your experiences with the this active fieldwork management. In your conclusion, you said that the responding businesses were happy with the result. Could you elaborate a little bit on that? So what did they actually experience from this new approach?
Well, it's just yeah, I suppose a point that was fed back from staff working on the areas that we have this new automated reminder procedure. And you mentioned earlier about the various the various response processes or various modes that businesses can take to respond to us. And yeah, it's just a case that, and generally these are the good respondents that are providing this good feedback. But you know, one element of the questionnaire is best filled out from somebody from finance, and another element is best filled out from somebody from HR. I thought it was very interesting from yeah, the presentations yesterday. Again, I asked that question about the delegation function. Yeah, they just told us that you know, they wanted to respond and the questionnaire just got lost in the office, or their colleague was lazy, or you know. So that's the only feedback we have at the moment. But yeah.
Would be interesting to collect more
Absolutely.
of that kind of information. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, for sure.
More questions? We have time. Please, Joe.
Thanks for that interesting presentation. Yeah, and it's great to see you leverage the scientific literature to better monitor data quality and intervene when necessary. But I wanted to get your thoughts on like kind of a more fundamental question is how can we better incentivize enterprises to participate in our surveys? And you mentioned that these are mandatory surveys, but you can't really enforce mandatory participation. So yeah, just curious if you've thought about what more we can do to incentivize enterprises when essentially we're asking them to participate in a voluntary survey, since we can't enforce fines and whatnot.
Yes, and that's a very good question, Joe. Thanks. We did, again, I don't know, can I go back, but we can look at the interventions we took. There's a map of them here to go back quite a bit. But we would have done a full kind of communications and engagement campaign with these enterprises. And what worked well was things like, you know, providing snapshots of data to them, kind of encouraging companies, we did this in the SDS as well, to understand how vital their data are to us and that they can be used for their own purposes as well. So if you're a cafe or something, you can look at the you know, the retail sales index and you can compare your performance and so on. So we tried that. We also tried being harsher and warning, legal warnings. That didn't really work. And it's not really a good image either, I think, as Gareth was saying yesterday. But I think there's far more experienced people than me in this room about encouraging enterprises. And I think technology is a big piece of that as well. And I think APIs, we've been working on those, trying to make it as easy as possible. You know, that's the main thing. But yeah, certainly an interesting area. So thank you.
Thank you. I have a last question to you. Yeah. Very nice presentation. I like it very much. You in the future will raise some questions to you. But I have two clarifications. One is about your channel to portal or whatever to data collection. And the other is about, in general, we are talking about efficiency. We are very human resource oriented activity. So you talk about priorities. So I think that we are thinking to move from some tasks to another value added tasks. Can you elaborate more about that?
So the mode for collection is the electronic questionnaire. That's pretty much it at the moment. But as I mentioned, we have our DDC project, which is aiming to develop something like we saw yesterday with respondent portals and making it a bit easier for companies to engage with us and provide data to us in a more seamless way that's really respondent centric and really easy for them. Hopefully that will improve the situation. In terms of the efficiency question, yes, like all of these challenges in collection are just kind of building up. And as others have said, you know, it might not be the case that our budgets have kept up with that need. So there are really interesting things like we're all discussing here at this EESW, this workshop, that we'd really like to explore. And I guess my project, Liam's project, is the first step in providing those dedicated resources to go and look at these new challenges. We want to free up a lot of work that might be, you know, just slow because the technology or the methods or the plans around it is just outdated. You know, I think Gareth spoke about that yesterday in terms of silos that were set up many years ago and just haven't been reviewed. So the lot can be gained from that. And that was a major part of our interoperability project as well. Simply by reviewing SBS requirements that hadn't been reviewed in many years, we were able to eliminate many questions. So that would have been time spent collecting and analyzing and processing things that we had no use for. And again, that's just a symptom of, you know, again, these kind of challenges. So we want to free up space and we want to spend less time doing work that, you know, is whatever wasteful or whatever like that. So, and give us the space to engage in more interesting things.
Thank you very much. More questions before wrapping up? I think everybody wants to have lunch. I don't know if we'll have some messages from the housekeeping. No. So, please, Pasquale.
Just one very quick communication. As you know, the themes raised in the keynote speech 2 will be discussed during the small group discussions. So we have completed the framework of the 3 small group discussions that we will start just after the lunch. So please, before going to lunch, we ask you to complete your subscription of one of the 3 small group discussions in order to organize the groups just when we come back from the lunch.
It will be here in this room.
Yes. Topic 1 and topic 2 will be here, one there and another there. And a third topic will meet in the posters room that is downstairs, room 139. Okay, so please subscribe. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We will meet again at 14:30.
For the lunchtime, we could suggest 3 places around Istat. If you want, there are some any restaurant. Okay. One is just out of the office, Angolo di Napoli. And then there are other 2 restaurants, NSA,